So today we're going to be checking out a brand new instrument, but first let's hear the track and then we'll dive straight into it. What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Chris here. So like I was saying, checking out a brand new instrument. You could probably tell from the track, we're going to be checking out a Clav. This Clavinet plugin in particular was made by Rhodes. Checked out a few of their plugins before, so feel free to check out those videos if you haven't already seen them. I'm going to start off by saying Clav is not really an instrument I reach for often. I feel like there's a certain style that you have to play that maybe I just don't really find myself using too much. However, I had a great time making this track, and so with that said, let's dive into what the plugin has to offer us. This is what it looks like when you open it up. Stock Clav sound, no processing going on, but you can see we've got a few options for processing. We've got EQ, compressors, drive, some effects like chorus, phaser, delay, reverb, that kind of stuff, as well as some amplifiers and microphone combos. But enough about what it looks like, let's hear it. So as you can hear there, sounds like a Clav. Let's dive into some of the controls and sounds we can play with that's available right in front of us, starting with the EQ and pickup. This is very common that you would find on a clavinet. Here you can see we've got A, B, C, D, soft, medium, treble, and brilliant. Now, one thing to note is that when all of these buttons are off, don't actually get any sound. That is part of the characteristic of these controls, and then you can blend them to get your taste. And that's where you get the Clav sound from. Now, between A and B, these are your pickups. Your A is your kind of rhythm section, B is your bridge. Two different vibes. C and D basically will, if you're in D mode, that's having both of your pickups in parallel. So they're running together. A is in phase, B is out of phase. So it gives you two different sounds, you know. So you've got three, I guess, pickup sounds to work with, amongst also using your EQ. That will give you plenty of different characteristics to play with. So let's just hear what these sounds give us. No sound. That's what happens when you remove all of the EQ settings. Yeah. You can hear when I got to the bottom of that we actually don't have sounds up until that low F, which has thrown me off a couple of times, but these are just part of the limitations that you'd get with certain instruments, not having endless notes that you can, you know, play to your heart's desire. But that is also part of the sound when using these instruments, is not being able to play certain notes. So it is what it is. We move on. Let's check out what this drive sounds like. I'm really loving that like halfway mark, sounding really nice, just, giving you a little bit of fluff, but not super overpowering like it is, somewhere amongst the top of the drive section. Otherwise sounding really nice. Let's keep moving on. We've got some compression, some envelope/wah, velocity curve settings, all very fun. Let's hear what do they sound like. Keep reaching for that low C. I want it so bad. Okay, envelope and wah. So there you have it, the wah sound. This is a pretty unique, not unique, but I guess common effect used with the clavinet sound. Tend to hear it on a lot of the older songs that will utilize these kind of sounds. So let's keep moving on. I'm going to skip the velocity section for now. We'll go through some of the effects and then circle back to that. So let's hear the chorus. That's so nice. And on the default chorus preset, I haven't touched anything. I haven't touched the rate or the depth. But let's play with that a little bit and see what it sounds like. Super lush. Let's move into the phaser. Sounds great. We'll keep moving on. This is what the delay sounds like. Got that analog style delay, and very nice. I can push it quite hard without it entirely feeding back on itself, but let's hear what happens when we do push it all the way. Not feeding back, but we get that. Always quite fun. Let's hear that reverb. So there we have the reverb section. Got a nice couple of flavors in there. Spring, plate, room. You've also got your pre-delay, your time, your wet dry. Pretty standard reverb controls. But I like the few, options they give you for reverb, which is really nice. Now, last but not least, we've got this section on the left, which obviously has our amp, our microphone, our damper, which is a new little feature. And this little tucked away menu that usually gives us global tuning, and then some of the additional noise sounds such as the mechanism and the timbre. So with that said, let's check these out. Gonna keep everything dry for the sake of hearing what these do, and then we'll mix and match everything at the end. I love adding an amp to some of these keyboard sounds. Clavinet, Rhodes, Wurlitzer. With the records we're used to hearing, I would say most of the time you're pretty used to hearing that sound passing through an amp or a DI or a combination of both. But for me, the sound of hearing these kind of keyboards through an amp just feels way more authentic. I love the fact that they've included this. We've got the cardioid and the dynamic mic. Cardioid sounds a little bit... Cardioid? Condenser. Condenser, but it's labeled as cardioid. I guess in this case the cardioid mic does sound a little bit fatter, the dynamic thinner as you would expect. But, you know, in the case of a mix, it's always good to experiment with these things. Sometimes you might want a thinner sound, especially if you've got quite a dense mix going on. But I find it sounds really nice. Adding a little bit of drive, I'm sure, will give you that even more authentic amplifier sound. Moving on from this, let's check out this damper control. Really love this. Let's hear what it sounds like. It just pulls back on that sustain and makes it way more plucky. I mean, the clavinet is already super plucky as an instrument, but this just really like narrows it down. Let's combine what we've got set up here with some of the additional effects and sounds, and then we'll dive into that velocity control and finish off this video. Actually going to turn down that mechanical noise a bit because we're getting lots of clicks and pops. So there you guys have it. That's pretty much all the controls. Let's quickly check out the velocity curve. I'm just going to default this preset. So back on the start, what this is doing is basically changing the way that the plugin responds to the velocity of your keyboard. Right here, I'm using a waterfall keyboard, very light. on the touch. So maybe you want that to be reflected in how the plugin responds. So I can change this curve and this depth. And what that will do is, right now I'm playing at the same velocity. So depending how hard or soft you play, basically it will pick louder or quieter samples to almost act as a form of compression. But instead of actually compressing the sound, it's just picking the louder or softer samples depending how you set this. So in this case, if I set the curve to high, I can press really soft and the sample comes across quite loud. But then when I press really loud, there isn't a huge difference between loud and soft. And then on the opposite end, it's the opposite. So really soft is really soft and really loud is really loud. So it gives you more of a dynamic kind of push. I find these controls are really convenient when you're trying to kind of nail a feeling in regards to the keyboard you play and the sound you're trying to achieve. I've got a weighted keyboard in the back. That is, you know, if I was playing like a piano sound, I probably want something more like that because the feeling I get, the response feels a lot more accurate to what it would feel like playing a piano. Something like a clavinet usually has slightly lighter keys on your fingers, you know, so for me having this kind of keyboard isn't the end of the world and it actually responds really well. So I wouldn't really be playing with this loads in this case, but with other plugins that don't have this control, I would actually go into my keyboard and in the global setting I have a velocity curve that I can change basically how the keyboard will respond, which I find myself reaching for all the time. So the fact that plugins like this are implementing it makes it really convenient for me to, you know, kind of finesse that feeling, because I feel like that's also a big part of nailing a sound and feeling comfortable with how it responds is, you know, that it feels accurately sensitive. So that's basically what that's doing. You know, it's mainly the curve I find myself playing with more than the depth, but if you're willing to try it out, it's there. It's a bit more of a piano player's tool as opposed to like if you were just producing and you needed this sound and you're not really too fussed with how it feels to play, or you're just clicking and dragging in MIDI, doesn't really make a difference, but there's that. So there you go. Just to quickly dive into the last kind of tone control in here, I've just turned the mechanical noise down, so not really getting that click after I let go. But we've got this timbre sound, right? And this is almost like a tone control. So this is what it sounds like. You go from kind of mid-normal sound to high, a bit tinny, and then down to low and dark, and everywhere in between. So this allows you to really kind of sculpt the sound. I find this a really powerful tool, especially in the other Rhodes plugins, like the Rhodes keyboard, the Wurlitzer. Really powerful for kind of just instantly getting a slightly different vibe, especially if you need the sound to poke out in the mix or maybe be a bit more covered in the mix. You can just use this control on its own to almost act as an EQ, which I find really convenient. Obviously, you got loads of different kind of styles of EQ in this plugin, but that on its own, very powerful. So definitely check that out. Now, we're at the end of the video. There's one feature on this plugin that I don't really understand how it works, and I realized it was there when I was putting this track together. Right now, I'm playing with it and I can't really get it to work, which is the pitch bend. Now, when I was trying to find sounds to use on this, and I came across this Otto wah-wah, it worked. I know what's happening. It's because I've set this up already and my computer's not happy that I'm playing with it. But basically, we take this solo sound. The pitch does work. However, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like this. Now, that's fine, you know, I have an octave up and down, but with this kind of sound, for me personally, this is a sound I would love to just be able to go up and down a tone. And that control, I couldn't find anywhere. I've looked in the manual, couldn't see any control over how to get that to just be a tone instead of an octave, because I find it such a powerful form of expression when you're playing more solo-y kind of stuff, I guess. So my workaround for this was I had to do some diving into Ableton to figure this out, but I found this CC control. And what this allows you to do is, you can see here I've got pitch bend, mod wheel, all of this kind of stuff. It's assignable, and it's a MIDI effect, so it goes before the plugin. I'm sure maybe other DAWs have different forms of this kind of thing, but this is what I found in Ableton. And so what I've done is I've just assigned pitch bend, which normally would just control the pitch bend as it would in the plugin. But I've just basically mapped it to my controller. Oh, don't need to do that again. And I've just limited it, in this case, to 11.5, 11.5. And that was what I found was... maybe it's slightly sharp, but it's enough when you're just going... doing that kind of thing. And it allowed me to get my tone, my just one, 2 notes apart. And so that worked for me in this case. To the guys at Rhodes, really appreciate you making this plugin. But if there's any chance you can adjust that to give us that control of just changing the octave pitch bend to, whatever notes in between, 5, 2, would really appreciate it, and would save me having to go through this hassle to just be able to do a little pitch bend. That would be fantastic. Otherwise, guys, that is the plugin. There isn't really much more to talk about. We've obviously got a variety of presets here, different kind of sounds, different effects. We can end this video just flicking through a couple of those. You can obviously save presets. There's a bit of information here if you want to find the manual or, check out the sites, blah, blah, blah. But that's about it. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to know your thoughts on this plugin. Are you guys Clav users? Is this a plugin that you might find yourself reaching for? Personally, I'm not huge on Clav. It has found its way into some of my productions, but overall, I'm really digging this one. Sounds great, very authentic. For me, the Nord is pretty up there with genuine Clav sounds, and I do feel like this holds up, which is really nice to see. So yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you guys think? But that's about it, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The support really helps. And thank you to anyone who's already done so. With that said, let's hear some sounds for the last time.